Hey friends, welcome back to Just Got Fired, the YouTube sensation that's taken the world by storm. Not really, but here we are anyway. So, last time we talked about making a list. Yeah, you're gonna pretend that you're Santa or Belsnickel, whichever tickles your fancy. Quick sidebar here. I love The Office, both the UK and the US versions. And you can hear some Michael Scott quotes if you follow my videos. That's just what I do. All right, so on our list of things, we had four things, right? If we're gonna look at the list from last time, there were four things. Those four things were figuring out the money situation in the short term, tell somebody about what happened, figure out what you want to do next, and then figure out the money situation in the long term. All right, so we'll start with the first one. Figure out the money situation short term. Basically here, what you want to do is cut the fat. Get rid of anything that's not necessary for survival in the next 3 months. I got rid of Disney Plus, Audible, DAZN, and Navigraph. Those last two, you probably don't know what they are. That's fine. Basically, those are the things that either have like a monthly subscription, and I didn't, want to continue that, or they had a yearly subscription that was coming up fairly soon. All my other subscriptions are also yearly subscription, and they were paid already, and they don't expire until sometime next year. And I also kept 2 subscriptions for quality of life for the family. You'll see what those are when we look at the budget in a little bit. You, however, may want to get rid of more depending on your situation, including cable, internet, cell phone plans, really anything else that's not mentioned, right? Anything else that's not necessary for survival or perhaps for quality of life if you can afford it. That's a little disclaimer there, if you can afford it. So we'll talk more about those expenses and other expenses as well when we get to step 4, which is long-term financial situation. So what I want you to do right now is think, what can I cut out of my life that is not necessarily for survival in the next 3 months? Because remember, you can always resubscribe to Disney Plus. You can always resubscribe to Audible. All these things. It's not like once you unsubscribe, you can't. If you get a job or whatever, you can't resubscribe to them. So cut the fat. All right. Next thing, tell somebody about what happened. This is honestly really crucial. You have to be able to tell people how you're feeling. Exactly what happened. What is the reason, why you got laid off? What did they say? What was the overall situation and feel, etc. Tell somebody right away. Get it off your chest. If you have a good relationship with family members, call somebody from your family. Your mom, your dad, your cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever. Call somebody in your immediate family if you have a good relationship with them. If you have really close friends or a close group of friends, get in touch with them. I personally told my mom first because, I have a good relationship with my parents and she was available. She picked up the phone. My wife was at work. My dad was at work. I don't really have other close family that's within my time zone. Most of my family, lives in Romania while I live in Canada. So I called my mom and I talked and I explained what happened and I explained that I have a great plan because at this point I had already written down my plan. My wife called me around noon when she had her break and I told her at that time. And I even told my kids in the evening, just making sure that they aren't scared about the situation, telling them that, we'll have to cut a few things for a short little while, but that everything will be fine in the long term, that it's not really affecting them that much, that, they're still going to have food on the table and they're still going to have their Netflix and so on. And finally, because I'm a bit of an extrovert, as you can probably tell, I told the world by writing a LinkedIn post, which is where this whole YouTube thing started. And that post at my last check had about, I don't know, about 1,800 people who had viewed it. I think the closest that I come with other posts was like maybe 500 views. But people care, right? People care about you. That's what I want to say. Like, even complete strangers who I've never met other than, connecting on LinkedIn cared about me, and they shared a word with me of encouragement. So tell the world, make sure you do tell at least one other person. All right, now that that's out of the way and that you've told everybody or somebody, the next thing on the list is, what do I want to do next? And I'm not talking about just me. I'm talking about you, right? What do you want to do next, right? So this is really important now, and you'll see why in just a minute. Basically, it involves, again, making a list or writing. So what I want you to do right now is, so after you've done the other things, this is the third priority. I want you to write down 5 things. 5 things that you have put off because of your career or because of your job, right? For me personally, it was my health. As you can tell, I'm a little bit pudgy, and I just had my blood work done, and my cholesterol is a little bit high, which is not surprising, of course. But, health, top priority, right? The other things are acting, something to do with soccer or football as it's known in Europe and the rest of the world except for North America, aviation, and starting my own business. So these are things that interest me or I need to do something about, right? So health, acting, soccer, aviation, and starting my own business. Basically controlling my destiny and being my own boss. There are some details to each of those that I'm not going to get into right now because that's not the point of this episode. There's going to be more to come in future episodes about every single one of those things. But I want you to think, right? I want you to think when you're making your list, what have I put off doing because I didn't have the time, I didn't have the energy, or because maybe my job was always in conflict with doing those things, because of course we have to, work 9 to 5, go to an office, whatever, and we just don't have that extra time, that extra energy that, is required to really be good at doing extra stuff, right? So write those things down, look at that list, and then right in that moment, what is one thing out of that list that just gets your heart rate pumping, right? What is one thing that you simply can't wait to start working on right now that you have some time available? Pick that thing and just run with it, right? My one thing was acting. I'm kind of doing that right now. Technically, I'm not really acting. This is my natural state of being. But that thing that I've been doing. I've been acting. When I was in high school, I acted in plays, right? And then after that, I tried to get back into it. I took some courses at university. I did some auditions, but it just never really happened, right? And then I started my career and so on, and the rest is history. But my one thing that really gets my heart pumping is acting. And I'll tell you all about that in future videos. You'll be sure to hear about it, as well as probably, starting my own business, as well as what I've done to, for health. I'll cover all these things. But my one thing, that one thing that I just wanted to do right away, acting. All right. What is your thing? Figure that out. Figure what gets your heart rate pumping and just focus on that. All right, now that you've done that, something really positive, now it's time for something kind of negative, all right? And that's figuring out the money situation long term, okay? We did the short term, now it's time to look at it long term. So this can wait a few days, right? You don't have to do it right away in that same day that you got fired. I put it off, it's not super urgent. I put it off until about Sunday. Right. You can, you might be able to put it off for a little longer, maybe up to a week, but it does need to be done. You need to rip off that Band-Aid. So first thing you should do, as soon as everything's kind of settled down and as soon as, a little bit of time has passed, you can think rationally, etc. Very, very first thing you should do is apply for employment insurance or benefits, or whatever it's called in your area. something that the government provides to unemployed people, whether it's financial or whether it's services or assistance or whatever the case may be. You need to figure out what that thing is or what those things are and apply. Swallow your pride if that's what's keeping you from doing it, and just do it. Second thing that you should do after that is to create a personal budget and calculate your personal cash runway. We've already talked about that, I think, in the first video, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking about something else, but this will come up again, personal cash runway. We need to calculate that because that's gonna be the calculation that shows you how much time do you have to figure things out, to get something done, so that money will start coming back. I'm going to show you mine right now. I'm going to show you my budget, just so that you get an idea of what it can look like. It doesn't have to look like mine. All right, so hopefully you can see this. And as you can see, it's not pretty. I'm not an Excel whiz. A little sidebar. I had a little interaction last week with a former client when I was working at Plum, and she created this dashboard in Excel, and it blew me away. Eliza, if you're listening to this video, I wasn't just saying that because you're my client at Plum. I was totally blown away by that dashboard. This is nowhere close. Like, this is just like peanuts. Anyway, not pretty, but that's not the point. The point is to get it done, to get this budget done. So what I did is on here on the left-hand side, as you can see, I listed all my expenses. I have mine separated between expenses that come out of my bank account and ones that come out of my credit card. The next one in the middle here, list all the money that is either coming your way or that you already have. Don't worry if you're just estimating at this point, as long as it's close enough in the ballpark. You'll notice that employment insurance, right? This EI falls under this column because it's income, right? It's money that is going to be coming in, and that's why it goes over here. And then finally, in the last little section here on the right, calculate your personal cash runway. Now I did everything per month, right? So I did my my expenses per month. I did my EI per month, but I didn't do my money per month because money is whatever's there, right? It's a chunk of money, and you'll see why that matters when I did the calculation. So the calculation is pretty simple, right? I'm just going to click on it here. You'll see that we have, when I click on the formula, we have F7, which is total money that I have, divided by C12, bank expenses, plus C19, credit card expenses, and minus F9, which is the EI per month, right? So basically, what you have versus your expenses. Now, I subtracted my my EI here from the expenses, just because that's how the calculation works. You're not adding EI to expenses; you're subtracting EI from expenses, because EI or benefits that will reduce your expenses. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, send me a comment and I'll try to explain a little better in the comment on YouTube. So now that we figured out the formula, you'll see that my personal cash runway here is 7.5 months at the current expense level with the money on hand. Now I noticed that I made a little mistake here. I put my cell phone at 0. I'm going to put this back up to what it should be because I'm not canceling my cell phone. I'm keeping it, but you'll see that it didn't change much, right? So even with a cell phone bill of $85 a month, my personal cash runway is still like 7.3 months. All right. As soon as you start adding EI into the mix, right? You ready for this? You'll notice that the cash runway gets longer. We'll start off with a little amount. We'll say $1,000 a month. Okay. So as soon as I added that, you'll see that my cash runway went from 7.3 months to 10.87 months. Awesome. Almost 11 months. If we were to add to say that I'm getting employment insurance of $2,000 a month, all of a sudden that's almost 2 years, right? 21 months, which is kind of crazy, right? in Canada, here in Ontario, employment insurance is only going to be given to me for about 12 months. So this equation will have to be redone if I'm without a job for more than a year. You'll see that based on this budget, I'm actually pretty chipper and happy, right? I'm not super worried at this moment. I'm pretty much set for the next year because my EI payment should be about $2,500 a month. That's the maximum that that you can get on employment insurance, regardless of your income before you got fired or laid off, whatever you want to call it. Some people, little sidebar again, some people told me that I shouldn't call it getting fired because that means that it was done for cause. Whatever. I got fired. There's no need to sugarcoat it. Got fired. All right, we're good. You'll see that if I put in 2,500, personal cash runway goes to 40 months, which is insane because I'm only going to receive employment insurance for 12 months. So, I'm good. I'm good. Now, here's where it gets hard. All right, this may not be your situation, and if that's the case, it's time to start cutting more. You can see here on this list, the biggest expense I have is my mortgage. Right? And if I didn't have any cash on hand, if I didn't have the savings and a severance and other things that I can call upon, I would want to talk to my mortgage provider to apply for some kind of assistance. Banks usually offer assistance in the event that you lose your job, so give them a call or apply on their website if you are in a situation where you don't have this kind of leeway. I don't know what the implications of that application are, whether it would negatively affect your future chances of, getting a mortgage or getting, anything related with credit, etc. So find that out if you need it, and then make the call whether you want to do that or not. As a last resort, I could sell my house, right? That won't be necessary in my case, but as a last resort, you could sell your house so that you are rid of that expense. And even though it's not necessary in my case, it might be necessary in yours. And if that's the case, I will tell you that sucks. Which is, I promised not to say that sucks last time, but if that is the case, that does suck, and I'm really sorry if that's the case. If you're renting, it might be time to consider how you can reduce that expense by either downsizing your living space or even moving in with relatives or friends for a short time, if you have that available for you. Again, swallow your pride. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. It's not ideal, but it might be necessary. Other expenses like cell phones can also be cut, but I'm opting to keep my phone because if I were to cut it, it would only provide like a 0.2 month increase in my runway, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll just change this back to 0, and again, my cash runway right now without EI is 7.3 months. If I were to cut my phone, it goes from 7.3 to 7.5. That's 0.2 of a month. It's 6 days. It's not really a big difference if I cut my phone. So I'm gonna keep it personally. You might need to do that. You might need to cut it if your runway increases considerably if you cut it. So again, it's important to do this because if you didn't do this, you wouldn't know, right? So do it, figure it out, be very specific about it, and then make those decisions. So I know that this video right now is not ending on a great note, all right? You will have to make some tough decisions. You will have to get your finances in order so that you can survive, so that you and your, if you have wife, kids, or spouse, kids, or whatever, so that you can survive, so that your family can survive. You will have to ask family and friends for help, whether that's financial or other kinds of help. You will have to ask the government for help, which is never pleasant. But go back to that third action, right? We just talked about it before we got to this sad part, figuring out what you want to do next, right? Focus on that thing that you are excited about. And in the next video, I'll tell you all about that and more. So until next time, this is Octavian signing off.